The BP connector have the following modules. BP connector server. Web services server, including the BPQL compiler and the accesses to the SAP BPC server, BP class. BP developer. Interface aimed for analysts and developers to access SAP BPC content. Includes limited versions of the BPQL compiler and BP class for direct access. BP wrapper. Set of DLLs to be used by customized applications, also used by the BP developer to access the BPQL compiler. BPODBC. Access SAP BPC using external tools. The schema below shows the access through the BP server. The BP developer component has internally the methods for calling the BP server web services, BP wrapper. The BP wrapper interprets and transforms the BPQL commands into the web services classes understood by SAP NetWeaver. Another way of accessing is through a BP developer standalone installation. In this case, both the BPQL compiler and the BP class are present in the client workstation. This access method should be used for tests and study only. This special configuration should be specifically requested and will come time-stamped. Testing the SAP BPC access. Go to the browser and access the BPC admin tool. The server address highlighted below is important for the BP connector configuration. Let's begin with the BP connector web service installation. This module installation is optional and valid only for corporate installs. If you are installing a training or trial version, jump this section. Be sure if have installed in the machine the Microsoft framework. If not, please download it. Run the setup.x program as an administrator. Click on Run. Click on Next. Select the site, the virtual directory and the application pool to be used in the installation. Click on Next. Click on Close. Let's check if the Internet Information Service configuration are correct. It may be that the standard configuration are not the necessary ones for the correct use of the BP connector. Click on Application Pools. Verify if in the application pool chosen for the BP connector web service installation the selected .NET Framework version is version 2.0. Verify also if the chosen site is started. Now let's test if the BP connector web service is running. At the console of the machine where the BP connector web service was installed, open a browser and type Now let's test if the BP connector web service is communicating with the SAP BPC. Click and execute command. User. SAP BPC user for access. BP connector needs a valid SAP BPC username for BPC access. Password. SAP BPC user password. Base URL. URL location of the SAP BPC. Delay. Waiting time in milliseconds for receiving an answer for a command issued to SAP BPC. Standard delay is 60,000 milliseconds. Locale. Language used in the SAP BPC server. Command TXT. BPQL language command, Biz&Plan query language. We will see in the next sections how this language works. Type return. Type of answer expected for answers to BP connector commands. There are two options, JSON or XML. We will see later what those parameters means. End date. Internal parameter. Not necessary on testing. Proxy URL, proxy username and proxy password are access parameters to the network proxy. Used when the BP connector is in a corporate network and the SAP BPC in an external environment. We will see these parameters in detail later. For the connection test, type the following parameters. Click on Invoke. Let's start the BP connector developer installation. It is a complete tool for the developer to access SAP BPC objects. The steps below should be followed for both corporate and trial installations. Verify that Microsoft Framework is installed. Run the setup.x program as an administrator. Click on Next. Select the product installation parameters. Click on Next. Let's test BP Developer access to SAP BPC. In the Windows menu go to Start All Programs Biz&Plan Developer. The BP Developer login screen asks for the connection parameter, services, username and password for accessing the SAP BPC. First step is to configure the connection parameters. Click on Connections. Let's now enter with the test configurations using the BP Connector web service. Click on the New button. Connection name. A name for the connection. We recommend a simple name for easy identification. URL. Location address of the BP Connector web service. URL. Address of the SAP BPC server. Language. Language of the SAP BPC server. Click on the Save button. The connection is saved in the list on the left. On username, type a valid SAP BPC user. Type the SAP BPC user password. Type OK. If this is your first installation, we will get the following message. This is where the license registration will be done. You should have a file with an extension .bpclic. The file defines name of the company who owns the license, license type, quantity of licenses, number of processors, license expiration date. To register the bpclic extension file, click on Click on Close. Click OK. In either of the connections used, we should have the following result. During client installation, we need to update BP connector command and .exe file that allows BPQL commands to be executed through command line. This file is installed by the BP Developer installer, but it is important to verify if there's any updates to be done. Delete folder command. Copy folder command from install files. Paste the directory where BP Connector Developer is installed. To test the BP Connector command we need to understand how to use it. Open a command window in Windows. Go to the folder where the command is installed. Example: C, Program Files, Extend Software, Biz&Plan Developer, Command. Type biz-plan connector command.x and interrogation signal. Parameters -u SAP BPC user -p SAP BPC user password -s SAP BPC server -ws BP Connector Web Service URL -l SAP BPC server language -d delay in milliseconds -j name of the BPQL command script file to be executed. For testing purposes, let's insert a non-existent file. Example: if we get the message, "Job not found," it means the connection was successful. The file ctest.bpc does not exist, but this condition is tested after the login command execution, so we know the connection is working. ODBC, Open Database Connectivity, is a standard way of accessing database systems. It defines a set of interfaces that allow programming languages as Visual Basic, Delphi, Visual C++, Java, among others, to be database independent, allowing access to distinct databases without the need of specific, specialized code. ODBC accomplishes DBMS independence by using an ODBC driver as translation layer between the application and the DBMS. The application uses ODBC functions through an ODBC driver manager with which it is linked, and the driver passes the query to the DBMS. An ODBC-based application can simultaneously use MySQL, MyAccess and SQL Server with a few changes in its data layer. The use of these interfaces are conditioned to the existence of specific ODBC drivers for the databases you want to access. SQL commands sent through ODBC must be compatible with the DBMS target. One ODBC requisite is the existence of a database catalog. SAP BPC is not relational and has no catalog, so the BP connector uses views as catalog. See the schema below. The access is through HTTP request accessed via web service. The ODBC driver also accesses the BP connector using web service, however it uses the view catalog. BP connector has ODBC drivers for 32 and 64 bits applications. For 32 bits applications, use the ODBC 32. For 64-bit applications, use the ODBC 64. Check requisites to install BP Connector ODBC. Run the setup.x program as an administrator. Fill in the product installation parameters. Start, Control Panel, Administrative Tools, Data Sources ODBC. Click on the User DNS or System DNS folder. Click on Add. Select BP Connector Drive, 64 bits. The connection properties are the same seen in previous sections. Click on Test. Click on OK to save.